Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. I'm excited for today's episode. We have the founder of Bridging Legal Solutions and also Counselor Your Docs. She's a lawyer, and what she does is she helps people to empower themselves to get the knowledge that they need to run their businesses and stay out of sticky legal situations. Is what we're talking about. So we're talking to Sukhi Alberga. Hey, you ready to rock, Sukhi?
Oh, I'm so ready to rock. Let's do this, Tim. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
No problem. So we always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Oh, well, I guess I would start with Counsel Your Docs. Counsel Your Docs is a software platform that is providing legal sort of education in how to draft a shareholder startup agreement. So what inspired me to do that was I wanted the public to be educated on how to do it and do it effectively and to protect themselves and customize it for their particular business. And also knowing that it's a lawyer guided application system that actually helps them. So that was my inspiration to do it. And the reason why I say that's like a success is that I went through the Law Society of Ontario's sandbox process to get an approval to launch this particular startup so that the public could have access at a cost-effective way of doing their shareholder agreement. So really, I have such passion for entrepreneurship that I really wanted to help startups that sometimes may not be able to afford all the legal costs when they're actually starting their business. So this was a way of increasing access to justice and being cost effective. And to be able to get that approval after like a 19-month vetting process that was
Wow.
not easy, to say the least, that is a real success. So, and we just launched on January 15th. So it's an
Wow.
exciting time.
That's awesome. Right on. Okay. So then, along with a good note, there's often some things that don't go as planned. And I'm wondering, for a bad note, something that hasn't worked, in your favor over the last, well, however long you've been self-employed. I'm wondering, like, can you share with us some mistake that you made that maybe something that got you into like some sticky situations that we can learn from?
I think one of my biggest takeaway, and I hope listeners can learn from this and avoid this, is I ended up, when I first launched Bridging Legal Solutions, our law firm, which is a multidiscipline practice that helps clients with both business law, health law, and HR services and accounting. I wanted to really have a great marketing firm to kind of help me and sort of, it's a new innovative idea, and I needed a marketing firm to kind of help me to get the message out there about the new law firm that I had. I went with a very expensive one, thinking, they knew what they were doing and thought, if you hire the best, then you're going to get the best results. That's not always the case. And
Mhm.
I think that was a learning experience for me because what I was communicating to them and being an innovator and doing something different, that communication line didn't quite get there. And I think what ended up happening is I ended up paying a lot, but didn't get the ROI that I wanted back. And as a result, that kind of really was a hard kind of lesson to learn. And then it was also like, okay, well, when I hire the next marketing firm, I have to make sure I'm asking the questions, make sure that they're understanding what I'm saying, they get it, and then what strategy are they proposing, and if possible, like work on with them for a shorter period as a trial basis, rather
Mhm.
than hiring them for a long term and saying, okay, let's just go with it. I'm trusting you on this. I think that's kind of the lessons that I learned, and that would be something that I would tell every business owner who's starting out, or even if you're at a point where you're now looking to expand and you need a really good marketing team, really asking the right questions and making sure that the marketing team is a good fit is really critical for your business to go to the next level. So that's what I would say.
Wow. Yeah, and you know what? That's really good that you bring that up because, I hear that quite often. Marketing companies, especially, it seems as though, I don't know, maybe it's like the Wild West out there where there's a lot of companies that say that they're a marketing company and they might not necessarily have the skills to back it up. But I think it's less nefarious. I think it's really just a matter of like things are changing so quickly. And I mean, just look at how, I mean, even when you think about stuff like, SEO and like social media marketing. Those are kind of like the main ways that you do marketing nowadays. It's not necessarily billboards anymore or TV ads. And and the rules change so fast
Hmm.
that
So
it's like
true.
very difficult to keep up on it. So you might have a marketing firm that, maybe they've gotten all of their, experience in the old days and they're not, things don't work the same way anymore. And then on
And
top of that, the business might not work that way, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And each business is different. And then you kind of have to figure out, well, where's your target audience? Where can you find them? What nowadays is like what platform? What
Yeah.
social media platform is supposed to work for you? Something that might work great for somebody on TikTok might not work for somebody on Instagram or maybe LinkedIn. So you got to kind of figure out for your particular business, where's your audience? Where do you find them? Where they hang out? And then, you got to kind of communicate that to your marketer and get
Yeah.
them to go and do that marketing skill set that they have that most of us don't particularly have, get the attention of those target audiences and hopefully convert them to sales.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tricky situation, especially like since COVID too. And there's been so many different ways of way people communicate and where people are hanging out and things like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the archaic ways of doing things like, radio ads or billboards or TV, like some may work for some
Yeah.
companies, but not for everybody.
Not for everybody. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that what you just said is pretty good too, because like there's two like sections of marketing. There's the number one, trying to figure out what strategy overall is going to work. Meaning, like you just said, like, is it going to be going to social media? Is it going to be billboards and TV ads? Is it going to be, Google and SEO? So maybe that's, a reason why you might want to hire a marketing firm just to find out what is best for you. But then if you already know where your target audience sits, then maybe you're looking for a different marketing firm. Maybe you're looking for like more of a doer, the ones that are actually going to put together the little campaigns, on social media, and they're going to put together your graphics and all that stuff. And those are sometimes two totally different agencies, right? You've got like the strategy agencies, and then you've got the doer agencies that are, and I think that that's probably where a lot of people are making the mistake. They're hiring sort of like a marketing agency that's going to do something that won't even work for your business rather than
Exactly.
trying to
I think
figure it out, right?
yeah, that's a really relevant point. And I think it also brings up to my inspiration of why I did Counsel Your Docs. Like sometimes you have to identify, even with the people that you're working with and you're hiring them to do something for you, they have to understand that you have a problem and they have to be the solution to it, right? The same way with the reason why I got inspired to do Counsel Your Docs was that I knew that there was a gap. There was a gap in people, public understanding. A lot of tech companies out there, legal tech companies saying, hey, use a template for this or use a template for that, but not really understanding what lawyers do and how they do it and why they do it. And why certain clauses are really important and how that affects your everyday, importance of running your business. So again, it comes back to figuring out what's your problem, who can solve it, and who can solve it effectively, and do they have the tools to do that? And I think that applies to when you're hiring somebody in the marketing place as well, right?
Yep, well said. So let's talk a little bit about learning from the best. So now, uh, I'm actually just curious in your own world, like how do you know, keep up on the new, stuff that's going on? Like, do you hire coaches and mentors? Like, do you do any of that stuff yourself?
Yeah, like to be honest with you, like when you're in the space, especially when now I'm entering into the legal tech world, and there's a new space and things are a little bit different in technology and it's very fast paced and all that. But at the same time, being a lawyer and being in the lawyer space, I understand the importance of in different industries, when you have innovation and technology, people are going lightning speed ahead, like AI, generative AI, languages, models, and things like that, and are going chat GPT and all that, like speed, right? It may be okay to do that, but when you're dealing with the legal world, especially with law firms and stuff, and even in those industries, it does come back to us. So if any kind of issue comes up with cybersecurity, data breaches, or whatever, or things like that, lawyers have to go in there and solve and resolve it, right? So in the space of the legal world and even in the tech world, emerging of the two, it can't be as fast paced as other industries can be. We have to still do it with a level of governance and a level of understanding within the law and protection of the public. So for me, it's, always having to be in that space and trying to understand where we're at and where we're going. And so, yeah, I have had the privilege to have, like, I know a couple of professors from the University of Toronto, the University of Ottawa, Queen's University that, I keep in touch with and sort of speak to them and have that engaging conversation. I'm involved with the Canadian Bar Association, being involved with them. We do a lot of podcast guest speakers so we can get experts coming in the tech world, cybersecurity, and all those kind of things where an AI, where you can actually talk to them and ask questions and get a lot of information and be informed that way. So I think having knowledge, like they say, is knowledge is empowering, right? And when you have the right knowledge, you can actually make the right decisions. And I think innovation is such a key thing. The more we innovate, the more we can advance society in a positive and a good way. It can be used in a positive, good way, even despite, some of the pitfalls that can come up with some innovations like AI, right? With like hallucinations and biases and things like that. And there's all sorts of, cybersecurity issues as well, and hacking and all that. So it's an interesting world to be in that space, right? Because there's so much happening and so much being involved, and you just have to kind of keep yourself informed and in it, right? And you have to learn and be a sponge, right? Learn and absorb the information and then figure out how do you work it in what I'm doing. For me, how I serve my clients, and for me, how I innovate in my legal tech startup, right? So, and that's really important. So that's how I do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned that you're in touch with like professors and all. Like, have you, number one, was it hard to get their time? Like, do you find that they're, hard to reach and all that stuff, or do they tend to be really open to helping people?
I think, yeah. Well, everybody's busy schedules, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes just scheduling can be an issue. But I think if you're out there and you're seeking someone's mentoring, or you want to get some information or whatever, there's a level of being persistent and being flexible with their time and trying to accommodate them so that you can get the information you need. But I think really important, I think at the essence of everything is relationships. It's how you foster a relationship, right? How you make a connection with someone. And when you're around like-minded people, you feed that energy off, right? And they feed it from you and you feed it off of them. And then you get that kind of rapport, and that interesting conversation kind of sparks that way. So I think managing relationships and making those connections, being flexible, are the key ways of fostering those relationships where you can actually learn and grow and be able to have a springboard, right? With somebody. So I think those things are really important.
Do you tend to like offer them something? Like, is there anything that you can offer them that's like a win-win on both sides?
Yeah, I guess so. I kind of never think of myself that way. But I think humbly speaking, yeah, like they'll be like, okay, Suki, that was interesting that you thought this way. Why would you do it this way or whatever? It just, the conversation just becomes really engaging, right? And
Yeah.
then, you can share your ideas and thoughts and kind of help them. Like I had one colleague recently, she's a lawyer, but she's also doing her master's, and she has a thesis coming up, and she wanted to do something on AI, and so we started talking, and I was able to kind of guide her on how to narrow her thesis and what direction to go. And she kind of really appreciated the fact that, I gave her that insight. So yeah, you never know, right?
Yeah.
It's in the conversation and how it flows, whatever you learn. And when you have an openness to be able to share information and have that exchange, it allows those opportunities where you kind of learn and grow from each other, right? So yeah, definitely. Yeah, openness is really important.
Agree. So let's talk a little bit about the tools. Now, I mean, we've mentioned AI a few times, but is there any other tools that you use in your business to get success?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you have systems and processes in place for your particular business, those are really important. And I think when you get them right, look, nobody's perfect, right? You have to learn and go. Like obviously when you launch and you get out of the gate, some things might work, some may not. You might have to tweak or maybe even pivot at some point, right? So you do that. But so long as you choose the right systems and they have the right foundation, you have a place to go. Do you know what I mean? You can only kind of build from that. And I think for me, sometimes some systems are designed, because some systems are kind of designed for a certain target audience or whatever, they may not suit what you have to do. And I find myself, and maybe I'm just kind of built that way, I don't know, but I tend to tweak things. I tend to say, okay, your system works this way for me, but what I'm doing and what my objective is, I needed to do this. So how can I make this work for me in my particular scenario and business case? And so then I kind of come up with creative ways of doing it. And then, you know what? Most of these systems and places and tools that you can use, they have support. You always call them support and be like, hey there, I'm really trying to do this. I understand your system doesn't do this, but can I do this? Blah, 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 and you kind of figure it out. So I think I'm really that person that's kind of built to sort of do things differently and figure out how I can make it work for what I'm doing. And then how does it best serve my end users or my clients, right? At the same time. And so for me, that's always the objective too, right? Because what is successful is dictated by the feedback you get from the people you serve, right? Yeah. So.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney from Natural Born Coaches, and I want to give two very big thumbs up to Tim Melanson and his Creative Crew agency. I have been using them for a long time, and I am 100% happy. They get the job done right, they're fast, and they let me focus on my business. I don't have to worry about anything. So again, I want to give them two very big thumbs up. I have no problem recommending them. I don't give testimonials for everyone because my name is attached to it, but I gladly do so for Tim and the Creative Crew agency. So use them, you won't regret it, and good luck.
That's really good advice. And it's something that I've actually done too. Like you think, okay, you buy a software package or whatever it is, or a tool, and you just have to use it the way that they say that you use it. But I've actually contacted the makers of a software program because it wasn't quite working the way that I wanted it to. And I was really surprised to get a response back from them right away. And they wanted to know a little bit more about how I was using it. And I get it now because from their perspective, they're like, oh, this is another use case that we can do to improve our product, right? And so
Right.
I was actually helping them to grow their software piece. Whereas I didn't even like, it was just one of those things where I remember when I sent the email, I didn't expect a response. I just thought, whatever, I might as well just send this email and see what happens. And one back. And it sounds like you do that too. Like you might be surprised. I mean, it's these companies might not necessarily be the big behemoth that they don't even check their email. They might actually check it and actually modify their tool for you so that you don't even have to hire anybody to do it for yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a key thing about entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs, when they have like the personality, you have to be cut from a certain cloth, right? When you're an entrepreneur, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, there's that sense of, well, I need to get something done. How do I do this? And then there's that tenacity of figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
And how do I figure it out so that it works for me? And then also, we're always also cost conscious and also want to be effective and still deliver. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs are this way, a quality product at the end of the day or a quality service at the end of the day. Right. So when you have those things in mind, like you figure it out, and you work it out and you try and get that resolution for what you're doing. Right.
Yeah, I love it. Right on. So now let's talk a little bit about practicing. Now, in the music world, I mean, this is a big thing. You need to do a lot of practicing and you need to keep on learning more things. And in the business world, it's no different. So I'm wondering, how do you stay up on top of things? How do you practice?
You mean in terms of what the feel of what's happening in the business world, or?
However you take that, like, I mean, so sometimes people will talk about maybe even personal practice and personal routines and things that keep them sharp, right? But there's also could be some actual stuff within your business as well that you need to keep up on. It's just a matter of like, what do you do behind the closed doors to keep you on top of things so that when you get out into an actual business situation, you're gonna have the best information.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I think it's a bit of twofold answer, and I think one thing is being organized, right? You yourself having to be organized, understanding what your objectives are and when they are. One person once said to me, a very wise person said to me once, you have to prioritize, like choose wisely. What are the things that are really important right now? And what are the things that you can't necessarily get to right now? And that's okay. You'll get to them after, but like, what is the key stuff that you need to focus on? I think when you have that kind of clarity, I think clarity is really important, clarity of mind. So having clarity of mind means also mean taking care of yourself, right? Like taking that time and breather for yourself and doing whatever self-care, whatever you need to do to make sure you have your clarity of mind. When you have your clarity of mind, then when you're going out in a business situation or a meeting or a scenario, what I like to do is I like to listen. I like to hear what the other person's saying. I like to find out their insight, their thoughts on what particular situation we're talking about or whatever, absorb that, process it, and then see for myself, how is that the information that I gathered and got, how is that going to help me and how is it going to help others? And what do I do with it? How do I dissect it? Where does it go from here? How do I apply it? How do I implement it? And what information doesn't necessarily work for my scenario, but hey, good to know. Probably could share with somebody else that could be applicable to them. You know what I mean? So how could I use this information to help others if it doesn't necessarily help me at this particular time, right? So it's kind of that sort of way of thinking and just kind of having a pulse on things, hearing what other people are saying, their experiences, what's happening in the business world right now, and just in society in general, right? These are really difficult and unique times that we're in for most people. But in all of that, the exciting thing is that there's still a lot of innovation happening. And a lot of optimism for having a better world and better tools that can help people just do life better, and so I think that's the exciting part.
Nice. Yeah, there's a few things there that I want to bring up. Number one is, yeah, they are difficult times for some people, and there is a lot of change going on. However, one thing that I do know from history is that during major depressions is where large behemoth companies grow out of, right? Whenever something, downturns, that's where the real big companies get started. So, there's a lot of companies that are starting right now that will be the future big companies of the world, right? So now is kind of an opportunity.
Yeah. And I think for me too, it was like, I remember when COVID hit, because like I said, Counselurdocs was in a long process with the Law Society of Ontario Access to Innovation Sandbox. Yeah, it kind of inspired during that time where I was like, what can I do? And I think I was just the type of person that was kind of like, I always want to be like, I act on things. Right. And it was like, so what can I do? So I reached out to a friend of mine who's in the States, and he was a lawyer, but now he's in the tech world. And I said, listen, I have this idea. I want to do this. I don't know where to start. And he didn't really take me too seriously. I think he thought I was just brainstorming
stuff out there. Yeah.
Whatever. So he was like, yeah, you can do it on this thing and blah, 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 and go off. So I went and I started and I learned encoding myself. Like I learned and taught myself everything, and I was just really tenacious. And, sometimes you just have to have grit to just do something once you put your mind to it. And so I remember being up like 72 hours and trying to get and figure this thing out and getting it done. And then when I showed it to him, he was like, oh my God, do you realize what you're doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're doing computational contracts. And I was like, what's that? I got to learn about that. Like I just kind of stumbled in all of it and like learning it. And I think when you kind of get into that space where you're just like, I want to do something, I'm inspired, and they create something kind of jolts you to say, wait a second, what can I do? Is there something I can do? And if you can, and if you have it in you to be like, don't give up and just do it, and you have that mentality, I'm going to get it done, then you go for it. I think the other thing that I usually have with my clients, and I think clients like that about me, is that I'm the type of person where I'm like, if you say no, I say, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's come up with another solution. Why not? You can, like, there's not, unless it's absolute definite and you can't do anything about it, obviously. But if not, there's always why not, right?
Yeah.
What's another way of that we can do? Can we think outside of the box? How can we do this differently? And I think when you have that kind of mentality and you create that space, you allow that creativity to happen, right? And things like, difficult times like the depression and COVID and all these other things that have happened in the world, kind of give you time and reflection and space to kind of think about it. And I think that's where a lot of inspiration comes from, and people get inspired to do things and be a solution to a problem. And I think that's the most amazing part of humanity, right? The way that we have these gifts to be able to come up with ways to solve things. And that's why we've had so much advancement in, like, let's say, I don't know, in less than 150 years, look how much, like, our great grandparents, they'd be like, well, what kind of world is this that we're living in, right? Like, it's so cool, right? They look at you and I right now. We're able to see each other and communicate with each other. There was a time when you and I growing up, this wasn't an option. There were payphones back then, right? There weren't even cell phones, right? And long distance calling was like, sometimes a connection wouldn't be good if you were calling to England or whatever the case may be. Like, we've come quite the long way, right? And so I think you're absolutely right. Even in the tougher times, that's where the most inspiration and strength comes, right? Where people get up and do stuff. And that's just all inspiring.
Well, you know what? This is the perfect place for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Oh my goodness, it is exciting right now. Yeah, well, Counselurdocs, like I said, just launched. And so we're getting a lot of traction and a lot of positive feedback. And it's only 3 weeks in its launch. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I just, exciting to see how many people, users, and the public and businesses will benefit from it and just get them going, because a shareholder agreement is really critical for businesses. And I don't think people necessarily understand that. Especially if you're two or more individuals are coming together and wanting to work on a business, it affects your succession planning. It affects your financials. It affects your decision-making and everyday decision-making of your business. It affects your business development. Like, it can really impact so many areas of your business. Oh, and taxation, CRA. Oh my goodness, that's another impact that a shareholder agreement can have. So that's why it was really particularly important for me to say, you know what, this is a critical document that people don't necessarily understand, needs to be in place. And if you don't have it in place, it can cause a lot of liability issues, stress, and sometimes relationships can actually end. Like, it just doesn't end there. It has a real ripple effect. And so to me, I'm really big on education. And I really wanted to create something that would not only be a solution, but educate. And so that was important to me.
So what is Counselurdocs then?
Counselurdocs is a software platform which allows a user to go in and create their shareholder agreement, but it's guided with education and understanding so that you can customize your own shareholder agreement for your particular business idea and your situation. So it's really guided, and and it's cost effective and it's time saving.
Nice. So now who would benefit from this? Like, what kinds of businesses are going to be able to use this platform?
Yeah, so we created 2 streamlines, one for the public, which is predominantly for existing businesses. Let's say you started your own sole practitioner business. Now you're bringing somebody else in to join your business. Well, hey, you need a shareholders agreement. Or you're someone you have an innovative idea, and there's one person who actually has the IP, the intellectual property, and then the other person who has management skills, and you're coming together and you're going to launch the business together. So that's a great place for you to take advantage of doing the shareholder agreement at a lesser cost and cost-effective way of doing it. So those are the kind of people that would benefit from it. And then the other stream that we have it for law firms, where law firms can use it and help service their clients. So we have 2 streams to help. But really, my heart was, how do I advance our legal industry and our profession while at the same time being a benefit to the public and educating the public? So my heart was really about all of that. And I think, and I hope people will sense that and appreciate that, and really love using Counsel Your Docs.
Nice. So this is really for anybody who's entering into a partnership or of two or more people for a business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on. And you know what? That's great because I mean, I don't there's quite a few guests on this podcast that on their bad note, the thing that didn't go well was some sort of partnership, right? I mean,
And it can
things
be,
happen, right?
yeah, it could be a joint venture. You could be in a corporation where you're adding another one that's a shareholder or director, but has authority and decision-making power, right? Or
Yeah.
is going to be managing, having a managing role in the business, in the corporation, right? Or it could be in a partnership relationship where two people come together and they're both have, and that's even more critical because both of them are saying, well, we're taking on liability personally too, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's not even in the, like, it's not like the corporation is an identity of its own and it's separate. No, we're two together. And that's really important to have a shareholder agreement at that time. So it's really important to do that. And it's sometimes it can be two founders that are coming together. So they need a founder shareholder agreement as well. So it's a really important thing to have. And I think when two parties or more understand what the terms are, what you're agreeing on, and it's really clearly laid out and clearly agreed, you fall into less contentious situations
Yeah.
and pitfalls, right?
Yeah.
So it's to
Yeah.
really simply avoid all of that. And it's a good thing to have. It's
Well,
better safe than sorry.
yeah,
That's how
well,
I usually.
I was also thinking that I'm guessing that process of doing this probably would bring up a bunch of questions that you might not have thought about, and maybe
Absolutely.
might even make that partnership either more clear or might even point out that it's not the right thing to do, right? I mean,
Yeah, or it might
you'd
not
be
be right
learning a
at
lot.
a particular time for your business at this point. And you
Yeah.
you can still do something alternatively different, or you do realize, no, this is something we needed, but we hadn't thought of this, this, and this. So
Yeah.
now you can sit down and you can go through it, and you can actually understand why you have to think about these things and what are the legal implications of having such terms, and how do they even practically work in your everyday business runnings. So
Right.
I think that's kind of where my heart was, to do
Right
that,
on.
to
And
help.
then and so basically this is something that you're using a platform, so you're not necessarily having to hire a lawyer and pay their fees. You'd save a
Doing
little
it
bit of
at your
money
own
by doing it
pace.
this way.
Yeah, you're doing it at your own pace. Like sometimes you have clients and you kind of go over a document with them and they're like this is the one thing that I always try and get my clients to understand. And that's why I take my time with my clients too, is there's always that I have to be careful with my words and how I use this. Yeah, still a lawyer hat on. But like, how, okay, when you're kind of sitting and you're explaining something to a client and you're making them understand something, there's that kind of sense of, oh well, my lawyer knows about it, right?
Mm.
My lawyer understands it, my lawyer knows about it. But then they go out in the world not understanding, but oh, my lawyer knows about it. Oh, but I made a decision that I wasn't fully informed or fully understood,
Uh,
right?
but
But
your
I can't
lawyer
have
wouldn't
my
approve.
lawyer to figure it out and fix it for me. But
Yeah.
what I created with Counsel Your Docs is making you say, hey, do it at your own pace, do it at your understanding, but get this, understand it, so that when you go out there, you're making right decisions. You're getting it, you're understanding it. And if you don't, now's the time to understand it or seek out further legal advice, right? And of course, clients can always come to Bridging Legal Solutions too as well. We can help you too. But the whole idea is to say, you know what, get informed, understand it. This is for your own benefit. We want to see you succeed. I mean, I'm really passionate. Nothing excites me more when I see startups and businesses succeeding. Like, to me, it just, I don't know, I get a high out of that. So, and being an entrepreneur yourself, right? Like you want to succeed and you want to see others succeed and take them along with you to see that journey, right? So that's kind of what that was for me.
So how do we find out more?
Oh, yeah. Please visit Counsel Your Docs at counselurdocs.com, and you can learn more about it. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sukhi Alberga, and you can learn more about Counsel Your Docs and Bridging Legal Solutions. And you can visit Bridging Legal Solutions at blsmdp.com.
So thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Sukhi. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thanks so much, Tim. Great questions. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Great. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. And we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.